Hey everybody, we're live again. It's Thursday night here in beautiful Baltimore, Maryland. We're coming to you live here on the live stream, 8 p.m. again, as always. So thanks for tuning in. How you guys all doing this week? How's your week been? It's been an interesting one. You know, here in Baltimore, they announced finally that they were going to close all indoor and outdoor seating in the city of Baltimore effective tomorrow, Friday at 5 p.m. You know what I'm saying? It's an interesting thing. Like I had some sources in the city that were telling me last week, like last Tuesday, last Wednesday, that this order was going to happen on Friday, which is last Friday, but it never did. And I was kind of surprised because, you know, I was like waiting for it to come. I was waiting for it to come. We were preparing at the shop because we wanted to see, all right, if we have no more indoor, outdoor seating, then we got to get ready. And the order never came. So I was kind of surprised, but then I didn't think too much about it. And then they announced it yesterday that they're going to close indoor and outdoor seating for all restaurants, bars, and food service operations in the city of Baltimore. And then I realized that why they did not announce this on Friday last week. Because, was it Monday or Tuesday, they swore in the new mayor of Baltimore, a kid named Brendan Scott. He's like 38 years old. And the outgoing mayor, Jack Young, I mean, he's been a little bit like filled with controversy. I think a lot of people have not been happy with his tenure as mayor. And he was the city council president that took over the mayor's office after the former mayor, her name, was removed from office because of a whole, like, basically a scandal involving all kinds of money and like stuff that was stolen. So I think Jack Young just didn't want to like end his mayoral tenure on a low note by shutting down everybody and having everybody get mad at him. So he pushed it off, and like Scott had to do it. And so now they're all upset with Scott. A lot of the business owners, like there's this one bar in Fells Point that basically compared the mayor of Baltimore to a Somali pirate on Facebook or on their social media, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. And you know, it's a place called Ale Mary's. It's a bar downtown, and I've never been there. I'll never go there now because that's just ridiculous. If you haven't seen what it's like in Africa, then you go fuck yourself. That's pretty much my thoughts. Anyway, so moving on. So that's what's been happening here. And we're going to start off with some coffee, as always. How's everyone doing tonight? So the coffee this week is the Nice Coffee. It's our holiday blend. It comes in a set with Naughty and Nice. And basically what these are these are the same coffee with two different roast profiles. So the Nice has a lighter roast profile, and the Naughty has a darker roast profile. However, it's not dark, like dark. It's just more dark than this. But it's a nice way to see how roast affects the coffee profile. And yeah, so I thought we would, since it's December, we only have a couple more weeks left. I thought we'd still continue with the Naughty and Nice. We've been doing it, I know, for the last couple weeks, but we're going to continue on. So this week's Naughty, this week's Nice, next would be Naughty. And yeah, so it's a coffee that it's a coffee that I get from Western Honduras, a place called Cafe Shell, and that is in the town of Copan Ruinas, which is, if you're driving, it's about 3 hours from San Pedro Sula. So if you're driving from San Pedro, it's about a 3-hour drive. If you're driving from Guatemala, it's essentially on the border. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, no. Maybe it's Salvador. I can't. Oh, God. Terrible. I know to the south is Nicaragua. But anyway, whatever. We're going to brew this coffee. I think it's a nice one. So, of course, I've got that pre-ground. And today we're going to do the AeroPress. Because we do a lot with Chemex, we don't do enough AeroPressing. So I thought we'd do more AeroPressing. Right. Got our funnel from the AeroPress. Put that in there. So today's recipe, I'm going to use 24 grams of ground coffee. It's got a nice aroma, nice sweet notes. Because it's a natural coffee, we got a little bit of berry, some fruitiness to it. The roasting brings a little bit of chocolate tones. All right, we've got 24 grams. Going to put that in. And the AeroPress, just kind of shake it, make it flat. And then we're going to get our kettle and some water. Oh, I'm spilling water. Spilling water on my table here. That's making me upset. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add water. As you can see here, it's a graduated cylinder, right? And the AeroPress is basically a big syringe. And so you can, as you can see here, there are, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't really know how much volume that is. I just fill it to about here. Simple enough. So we're going to take the water, pour it in here, and make sure that we're saturating all of the grinds as we pour. Now the coffee is going to bloom, so you don't want to go right to the edge because you have to put the cap on top and it has to seal at this lip, right? So if you fill it to the top with water and it starts to overflow, now you've got a mess, and it's really difficult to clean on the fly and get a proper seal. So we tend not to do that. So I'm just going to let that sit for a moment. I add a little bit more water to break down the cap that's forming. Like you can probably see I don't spill it and make a problem for myself. Okay, so we're going to take that, start the timer, and I'm going to presume now about 15 seconds have passed since I put that in. So really, I'm going to stir I'm going to steep and stir for a total of 45 seconds. So really, I'm just going to do it for 30 seconds right now. And this is just to make sure that the coffee gets agitated and extraction has begun. But unlike other types of brewing methods where you're just kind of either pouring it through or steeping it, we're going to be pressurizing it to help the extraction. So our brew time is going to be much shorter than a standard like pour over or French press. All right, that's good. So now we're going to take our paper filter and that goes in this cap, right? You see this cap has holes in it, right? That goes in here. And then all of this goes on top. And then you lock it in with a twist, right? Now we're going to take our mug. It's about a 12-ounce mug. This is the mug from our gift guide on the channel below. So if you're looking for coffee gifts for friends and lovers, I've got a video out there for the 10 great gifts for Christmas. And can you see that? Let's go a little bit higher so you can see all of it. All right, so now we're ready to press. So just basically, you're going to press evenly and continuously. And at the very end, you're going to hear this hiss. Maybe you'll hear the hiss. I'll hear the hiss. I don't know if you heard the hiss, but the hiss was right there. Rusty's asking, single or double filter? I'm just using a single filter this time. So there's always a little bit of water left here at the bottom of this. As you can see, it's dripping out, right? So I leave it tilted for just a moment, just to draw down that liquid. Otherwise, it starts to drip all over your desk and all over your work area. And it's a bit bothersome. It's just bothersome, right? All right, good. Now we'll turn that over. And that's pretty much it. You're done. Now we've got our elixir of coffee, and it's filling about half the volume. So it's about, 6 ounces or so of the coffee. It's wetting my boxes. So I don't know if you can, it's hard to see because otherwise I'm going to start to spill it, right? But anyway, You could drink it like this, and this is a pretty. It's pretty full and rich, and like, that's actually quite nice. Actually, you could totally do that. But I like to have it more as a regular coffee. So because we used the full amount of coffee for a 12-ounce serving, I will now add enough water to bring this to 12 ounces. I'm glad you could hear that, Rusty. That's good. That's good. Now, as you notice, I'm actually doing this circular motion. There's no necessary. I don't believe there's a reason to do that. I just do that out of force of habit from brewing with kettles like this. I don't think you need to do that. I think just the force of the water will falling into the cup will mix it and homogenize with the coffee that's already there. All right, so that's it. I'm going to taste it now. Smooth, nice and good sweetness, some nice fruit, a little bit of creaminess there too. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. I like it. I dig it. I'm using some boxes to prop up everything. Oh, what's that? My revenge boxes from Roma. I just have them lying around here. All right, that's good. That is good. That is good. Yeah, so buy the coffee. It's $15 each, or if you get the set, $25 for the sets. You get $5 off. And if you use the Coffee Live password, you can get 10% off of this. So that's a pretty good deal. Yeah, all right, we'll put them in with it. Oh, I should get another box. All right, so let's get into our. Oh, that is nice. We're going to get into our cigar of the week. Again, I picked these up from Tobacco Leaf in Jessup from Raul. So today's cigar is the Southern Draw Kudzu Toro. And Southern Draw is I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but it's a cigar company that until I went to Raul's to buy the lineup a couple weeks ago and I have the dates here. I can tell you what I found out. I was there on November 14th. Until November 14th, I really had never heard of these guys. But Raul had a whole bunch of them. And I was just a different brand and something that I hadn't heard of, so I wanted to try it. But he had quite a lot of facings or lines and a bunch of facings. So I got one. I got one called the Hogan as well that I smoked separately just for myself, and this is the one that I got for the show. Turns out that this Kudzu line is the original line made by the company that was released in 2014, and yeah, they're from Texas, and I was looking at their website. They have a website that has a fair amount of information about themselves, which is really nice. Says that Southern Draw calls themselves a company owned and operated by a family of veterans and remains dedicated to producing unique blends of premium cigars. Founded on the tradition of Southern ladies and gentlemen, referred to as the culture of honor, but has grown beyond the South. When I was reading that, I'll be honest with you guys, when I read things like that and I think of the South and the time-honored traditions and the culture of honor of the South, I don't get a warm feeling. I think more of like lynchings and the worst possible things, really to the point where I don't really go down to the American South because I think it's not quite I don't know if it's safe. Even though I have a lot of friends, like some friends in Arkansas, they're all like, well, why don't you come down and visit? It's perfectly fine. Mississippi, why don't you come down? That's my thing, right? So when I hear about that, when I read something like that at first, it does bring like pause, like, oh God, what do we have to face, But as I kept reading, and so let's continue on. And so, but Southern Draw Guys has grown beyond the South and aspires to be part of a culture, quote, to be part of a culture where we should avoid intentionally offending others and have a reputation for not accepting improper or divisive conduct towards others. And they say that they are a brand of inclusion, which actually is nice to hear. You know, it's nice. I guess they can see that, you know, by saying they're from the South and all that, and the culture of honor, it seems that they recognize the fact that that culture is linked to all the worst that our country had embodied in the past. And so I think it's good that they note that they're moving beyond that, and that's not part of what they're about. Because I think especially in these times, it's very easy for people to fall into that kind of concern. Yeah, well, that's enough of that. So, tobacco leaf, we've got the Southern Draw Kudzu. It's a box pressed with an Oscuro wrapper from Ecuador, Habano Oscuro. And let's get into it. So it comes in cello, and they come in boxes, I think, of 24 or 20. And the price, I think the retail, the MSRP, I believe, is maybe around $9 or $10. At Raoul's, it's $11.95. But it's a nice looking cigar. Let's get it to zoom back in here. There we go. I think I need to get back a little bit so it doesn't confuse me. So this is the Southern Draw Kudzu. It's got a nice looking wrapper, I think, right? Look at that. It's a little bit oily. It's got a nice feel to it. Not too much veins. Huh? Nice box press. I tend to like box press cigars. You know, if you know, I like the Revenge, and that's a nice box press. All right. So we've got some, there's that kind of barnyard manure. Maybe some hay. You know, it's very strange. We talk about this barnyard manure, and that's kind of comforting. But if you're smelling manure, you're not very comforted. So, well, it's one of those weird things that... All right, so I'm going to cut off the top, the cap. So got our cap cut. Oh, come on. There we go. The cap is cut. Look at that. Not bad. All right, so now it's time to light. Well, the wrapper has, on the tongue, has a bit of sweetness. Manure, but sweetness. But not manure in a bad way. Although, how can you not have manure in a bad way? In a good way? How is that possible? There's some sweetness in the cold draw, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of leather, like a chromium dyed, oil impregnated leather. All right, so we're gonna light. Yeah, there's a nice sweetness to that. Oh, I'm down to my last match. Let's see if we can do it in one. You know, as I was lighting this, even now, there's a hint There's a hint of aroma of marijuana. Yeah. It's kind of fleeting now, but there was that hint of marijuana that was quite interesting. Like, not just a hint of smoke on the nose, but also a little bit taste on the palate. But it's starting off nice. There's some pepper, leather. It's pleasant. There's the draw is nice. It's a little bit restricted, meaning that it's got a nice pull to it. And a decent amount of smoke. Not a lot of smoke, but a decent amount. But the initial light starting off is quite pleasant. So what are you guys smoking and drinking tonight? And where are you guys? Are you inside, outside? Today started off really, really cold, like 30. And then it warmed up to maybe 45. And now it's probably back down to 30. So it's pretty cold here. You know, which reminds me of the whole, like, this, going back to this restaurant thing. Like, a lot of restaurants in Baltimore have spent quite a bit of money over the last several months preparing for outdoor seating in the cold. And, you know, a lot of them spent money on, like, trying to build tents. And the tent part was what made me kind of wonder, like, if you put up a tent and you put all the walls around the tent and enclose it because you want to keep the heat in and prevent the wind, the cold Arctic wind, from blowing across your guests, you've kind of built another indoor space. So that seems to me to defeat the purpose. And then there's the idea of using heaters. And, you know, it's because we smoke cigars. And when our cigar shop closed in October 2018, a number of our friends, we all joined this club called the Elks. And the Elks is a nice, great club founded by theater stage technicians, which, you know, my people. But our Elks Club, they allow smoking, but on the outdoor deck. And the outdoor deck has a tent, you know, one of those commercial type of tents. And so all season long, they leave the top of the tent up. But during the winter, they put the sides on. And that's where everyone goes to smoke. And you know what? In the last year, they finally put, like, radiant heaters, a couple radiant, like, infrared heaters. And of course, when the group of friends, we go outside and smoke and by the fire and build a fire and all that. But you know what? I don't know if I ever really enjoy that. I mean, it's fun to be with your friends and all that, but man, you're just sitting there in the cold, trying to enjoy your cigar, and it's sometimes just bitterly cold and just like, what are we doing? You know? And so, like, for me, it's like, for Spro, and like, there was always the thought of, like, well, are we going to do something similar? And, you know, we've always had outdoor seating at the shop, but I never really had that much intention to build the kind of outdoor seating that everybody else was doing, because my feeling is that it's pretty futile. You know, it's like you're trying to get people to sit, and it's just generally miserable. Like, I can't imagine going to some of the restaurants and, like, eating a meal and it's cold, you know, and, like, your food is just losing all temperature, you know. So it's really, to me, from my perspective as an owner, it's like, it's a really difficult proposition, you know. Like, we do provide outdoor seating, and if you want to sit out in the winter, you're always welcome to sit. But I don't know if there's really an effective way to make it nice. Like, I have been to Paris, though, where I've been in Paris in February when it was, like, really cold, and, like, some of these shops, they put the tables outside, And what they do is that they'll have some tables or chairs outside, and under their awning, they have like infrared lamps. And you sit out there, and they have like woolen blankets they give to the patrons, and you can wrap yourself in that. And, I did it, and I think I smoked a cigar like that. I mean, it's not bad. I might even describe it as it was kind of fun, but was it fun because it was fun, or was it fun because I was in Paris? I think it was the latter. So Rusty says, I got out of school earlier than usual, and I got home, decided to smoke a Partagas 1845 Clásico Robusto. Then it got cold and windy. I couldn't really see yet. It's really difficult to enjoy most anything in the cold, especially if you're going to be sitting and stationary, trying to enjoy the flavor of a cigar or a drink or even like meals. So I'm just talking about, like, this is why I never really did too much for outdoor seating at Spro's, because I just think that it's relatively futile. So how's everyone doing? Hey, thanks for joining us. If you had just joining us, glad to see you. It's another Thursday night. Tonight we're smoking the Southern Draw Kudzu, which is a great cigar. And then we're also drinking the Nice Coffee from the Naughty and Nice Holiday Collection, which is a great coffee. It's going really well with this right now. George says, early in the week it was brewing on the balcony, but I sucked. Yeah, and that's really what we're doing. We're mostly sucking it up, But, lately, this last year or two, I kind of gotten tired of sucking it up. I just want to be comfortable, and I think it's kind of like after the first year that Faders closed and we lost our main, like, cigar home, and we're back to being nomadic again. Man, I just kind of like, we used to tough it out, but now I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm just not, I don't know if I really want to tough it out anymore. I want to sit around in shorts and a t-shirt like I am right in this moment and just have a nice cigar. But, So are you smoking something right now, George, or was that just earlier? So far, we're just in the first third. And it's nice. It's pleasant. Not terribly dynamic of a cigar. Nice pepper. Some nice, like, woodsy notes. Maybe hints of cedar. Maybe a little bit leather. So this is a 6x52 Toro, box pressed, made in Nicaragua at the Tabacalera Fernandez by AJ Fernandez. And I've read that it was blended by a guy named Robert Holt. And they produce about 5,000 a month. So it's got a Ecuador Habano Oscuro wrapper with binder from Ometepe in Nicaragua, and then filler tobaccos from both Nicaragua and the United States. Like, I wonder if there's a little bit of a twang, and maybe that could be like Pennsylvania leaf. I don't know. Could be. So George says, I'm comfortable with a cigar in the evening, plus being inside all day with work gets old. Being outside helps. Smoked them. Excellent. What do you think about that cigar? Oh, that's right. You said that you liked it. I remember you saying that last week, that was one of your recently, like, one of your more recent favorites, right? The Cabaiguan. Yeah, that was a pleasant smoke. Pleasant. Actually, it was so pleasant that I looked up on my social media. I was like, okay, I got to find out what this Speyside that I had, and I found out that it was the Speyburn Providence Speyside Scotch whiskey. So I went to the wine source today and I was like, hey, do you have this Speyburn? And, like, The girl was like, we don't have that one, but we've got some other things that are stylistically similar. And so she recommended this, the Glengoyne. And the Glengoyne is aged in the Glen of the Geese. The Glen of the Geese. The Glen of the Geese. Hibernating flocks of the geese give our home its name. Glen of the Geese, or in Gaelic, Glenguin. No idea if that's correct. But our guests have inspired more than just our whiskey's name. We're proud to be the slowest whiskey distiller in Scotland. And like those geese, we're guided by an unwavering clarity of purpose. Sometimes the right way is the long way. Amen to that. Amen to that. So it's aged 10 years. And we'll get into this in a moment or so. See if it goes. This is kind of it doesn't have this, it definitely is not the same character as the Kabaiguan. The Kabaiguan was very smooth and very balanced and very unified. This has a little bit more of a pepperiness. Like, this is kind of what you think about. Actually, the pepper's been building, and it's kind of got this pepperiness here. So it kind of builds up in that my father kind of pepperiness. Not that that's necessarily bad. Virtual learning for middle school sucks. Oh yeah, that does. So you're teaching middle school, George? I didn't really know what you did, but I hear you. My niece is in what is she? She's going to be 11. She's 10 years old, so she's in 5th grade. So not quite middle school, but she's been doing the virtual thing, and it's tough. It's tough. And I know Rusty's teaching, cooking at high school level, and that seems to be tough because what, Rusty, you posted the other day that you just only had one student live in person and the rest are virtual. And yeah, how do you teach cooking to students that aren't in the classroom and they're not allowed to do any cooking or cutting at home? It's very difficult, very difficult. And Di says, something like a tour bus driver would say to tourists. Actually, this tour bus driver, when I drove tourists in Hawaii, lied, just fabricated complete stories about whatever we're seeing. So if you guys don't know, I used to live in Hawaii a long time ago, and I ended up getting a job driving for a company called Roberts Hawaii, and I got trained to drive the big tour buses, like the Greyhound style buses. So yes, if you gave me the keys or you said, "Hey, drive that Greyhound bus," I can drive the shit out of that thing. I can back it up and parallel park the son of a gun, right? So I used to drive tourists around, back and forth from the airport, take them around the island, take them, to the luau's. And, I was still fresh from living here, from growing up here in Baltimore. So I didn't really know much about the islands at the time. And, my typical spiel was like, hey, welcome to Hawaii. Hope you have a good time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I may not know the answers, but I'll at least make it up. And people would ask all kinds of crazy questions, and you don't want to disappoint them. I mean, the typical tourists that came to Hawaii, especially in the late 80s and into the early 90s, saved money for quite a long time to come to Hawaii. And it's there, like, like some people had saved all their lives, saved a lot of money, and dreamt all their lives of coming there just for like a week. And I did it. You don't want to disappoint them. You want them to have a nice time, and they're in love or they're happy to be there. So they ask, "What is that?" I tell them, I don't really know much about the flora, but still they ask, "What kind of tree is that?" And I would make up something, Omalalupa, and they're like, "Oh, it's wonderful." Yeah. So George does work at the middle school. Work with teachers and instruction. Nice. Teaching, that's a good profession, man. That's honorable and noble. I like that. It's tough work. I used to work with a lot of like children when I was in Hawaii, trying to teach them, and It's tough, but I think it's very, very rewarding. Very rewarding. Yeah, Rusty, the banyan tree. That's the. Yeah, what is that? Oh, it's the weeping tree. So the cigar's coming along well. Still peppery. I mentioned that I smoked a one called the Noble, or the Hogan, from this company, and let me see if I can find it here. That Hogan was really, really good. Like, I was really looking forward to trying this one. But I have to say, at this moment, I think the Hogan is better. Like, I think I like the Hogan better. Let's see what the Hogan is about. I believe, let's see here, it's from their Cedrus line. Oh, I don't know where it's from. But they've got a nice website. I mean, I'm looking at their website right now. Yes, it was the Hogan from their Cedrus line, and that one is, oh, it's an Indonesian Besuki wrapper, Habana 2000 Nicaraguan binder, and the all Nicaraguan filler. But I thought that was really an interesting cigar. This one, nice, but not quite as interesting. It's that pepperiness, that my father pepperiness. And if you're the kind of person, the smoker, that likes that my father pepper, black pepper thing, or like the black pepper from the Opus X, I think you'll probably like that a lot more than I do. Like, I'm not a big black pepper fan. But it's nice. The construction is good. It's smoking well. Yeah, it's good. It's good. But the interesting thing, for a company that just came out in 2014, 6 years later, they have 12 lines of cigars, which, gosh, that seems like a lot of cigars. A lot of cigars. I don't know if you guys have tried any of this, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. Yes, it is rewarding. As much as I thought we'd do sometimes. I'm very fortunate to come here. Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I understand the idea on the doubt part. Like, are you really reaching them? Are you really teaching these kids anything of value that they'll be able to live upon? And, it's interesting. Like, I remember this one girl that I taught, but at the time she was, I think she started in the classes when she was like 5 or 6. Oh my gosh, she was an absolute terror. Like, just naughty and didn't listen very well, and always always fooling around, right? And then I moved away, and I was probably teaching her for a good 3-4 years. And I would go back then. I would go almost yearly. But I didn't see her for quite a while, like maybe 5-6 years. And then by the time I saw her again, she was up in high school. And when I saw her, she was all so excited. She was all happy because, she was, she said that I had made a nice impact in her life. And I was like, oh, man, that's hard to believe. Hard to believe. You were the most knuckleheaded kid of the class. So George says the Jacob's Ladder is a powerhouse cigar. I'm going to have to try that one. There's, like, when I was there, I was buying cigars for like a good, trying to buy for the next month and a half to 2 months, right? So I'm buying quite a lot of cigars, and for the show, and I was like, wow, how do you choose from like so many? They've got, like, Raul's got a lot of their lines. But I remember seeing the Jacob's Ladder, so I will definitely try that the next time I go down there. I mean, after that Cedrus Hogan, I mean, I had a very positive experience with that, so I'm really interested to try more of their lines. But the Kudzu's good. The Kudzu's good so far. It's still, again, very static. The pepper, not so much cedar, not so much wood. The flavor notes that they offer on their website says spice, charred oak, cocoa, and coffee. Maybe there's something to be said with the cocoa. Like right at this moment now, my palate is starting to feel a little bit on the dry side. I'm not saying that's necessarily a pejorative thing. But nice. I mean, my thought right now is that it's a nice cigar. So in the summer of 2016, the Cigar Journal labeled this cigar as a Best Buy. And it said that for them, they had delicate, fruity, bitter tones of grapefruit, nuts, and coffee develop at the beginning. This cigar is tangy, sweetish, meaty, and delivers a nice chocolatey sweetness. Very balanced and multifaceted, and it's more of a medium cigar. Yep, balanced. I don't know if I would say this is balanced. I would say this is more black pepper. Black pepper, I'm not getting any of the tones of grapefruits or nuts. Not much sweetness. I'm not getting the meatiness. Oh, good. Then in August of 2015, Cigar Dojo gave this cigar a rating of 88% overall and a very consistent rating. So they said at a closed foot. This one did not have a closed foot box. So maybe the blend or the way that the style of the wrapping has changed. Easy draw. I wouldn't say the draw is easy. I think it's got good resistance. It's got a good draw with good resistance. Like it's not flowing through like openly. It's got good resistance, it's enjoyable resistance. Lots of smoke, cedar wood. Now, Cigar Dojo in 2015, they said that Southern Draw had a page on their website that had drink pairings for their cigars, whether it was beer or liquor or other stuff. I tried to find that on the website, and that's no longer there. So if you guys at Southern Draw are still or happen to watch this, I'd be interested to see what you guys think about what goes with it. I think that's a really interesting I think that's an interesting exploration, and that's something that we've been doing that my company has done with Fratello cigars. So we actually make the Fratello coffee for Omar. And then also in April 2015, the website Blind Man's Puff gave it a 92 rating, and their notes said that it was a dark and oily Maduro wrapper with shaggy foot, medium veins. I think maybe that shaggy foot has gone away. Medium veins, old leather, cold draw, pepper, light pepper and wood, roasted coffee, leather, earthy spice. Nothing too complex. Yeah, nothing too complex. I think that's very true still of this one. A smooth draw. So they said in the second third, which we're kind of moving into the second third now, that it started to develop more. It became more medium and full-bodied pepper with faint sweetness. And they said there was an earthiness that it was decreasing. Now, I'm not really getting too much of that earthiness. Definitely pepper. Not the pepper bomb that you get with like My Father, but definitely a strong black pepper. Hey, Kels, how's it going? Good to see you. Kel says, I really love the Rose of Sharon and Desert Rose by Southern Draw. Oh, that's what I have to try those too. There's more great sounding cigars. A Cigar Smokers Connecticut. Oh, that sounds good. How would you describe that? I'm interested to know. Definitely, I will be trying more of the Southern Draws. I'm just kind of surprised at it's been around for such a long time, and I've never even heard about it until like last month. But my group always hangs out at Faders, and Faders was not the place for. They were never the place for like cutting edge cigars. If you wanted your Padrones, your Generals, your Altades, they got you. Perdomo, they got you covered. Fuente, they got you covered. But the rest, they weren't too keen on like getting with the boutiques. Yeah, no one hangs at Faders. There is no more Faders. That's the sad thing. Now you go to the one in Towson, the location in Towson, and now it's all Davidas, and they've got so many rules, cameras in your face, and rules. Hey, you need to carry this tray. I'm only getting one cigar. No, you still need to carry the tray. Why do I need to carry a tray for one cigar? If I go to the grocery store and I'm only going to buy a can of corn, I'm not going to get a cart. I'm not even going to get a basket. Nah, whatever. The interesting thing, though, about the Towson Faders location is that now that it's Davidas, and I haven't been there in quite a long time now myself, but the times that I had gone in the past, especially before the pandemic, and what I've been hearing for the past year, that it's supposed to be, it's definitely become more diverse. Yeah, nice. Nice. The ash, as you can see, is nice and white. It's burning well, burning evenly. So construction is really nicely done. Brian says the can of corn may turn in 10 items for lunch. Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. Actually, I bought a can of corn not too long ago. I was at the Giant. And in my local Giant, I found months ago, I found the damaged goods sections. And I don't know why, but the last year or so, I've become really a big consumer. Well, I mean, I just an aware consumer of damaged goods and cheap discounted meat, like meat that's just on the verge of expiring, like the steaks. So I'm always there and I'm looking for the yellow label. I'm like, where's the yellow label? Because, you get this like ribeye that's like $11. That's maybe $5. All right. That worked for me. I mean, I'm not going to let it sit in the refrigerator for like another week. I'm going to cook it that evening. Yeah, so this can of corn had a big dent in it. Right? Like it was kind of bent, like a sharp bend. Actually, it was so sharp that I was like, oh, did it actually puncture the can? But luckily it didn't, and it was far down enough so that it didn't affect the rim, so I could still use the can opener. Then Brian says, Harris Teeter has an excellent damaged goods section, including fruits. Oh, fruits and veggies, that's good. I could use some more damaged bananas. So I'm going to knock that off because it's getting long and I don't want it to spill everywhere. We're also getting to the point where it's time to peel the band. So I guess he's got double banded Southern Draw Kudzu. And, I don't know what Kudzu means. Maybe I can see what it means. Should do a video on damaged goods. I will have to try that. Yeah, I've been making more videos. I don't know if you saw the most recent one that I have on my personal channel, the Ono Coffee channel, on this channel, is one about the Americano. My favorite Americano is what it's called. And I kind of styled it off of this. There's a YouTube series by this guy, Evan Hadfield, who's the son of the astronaut Chris Hadfield. And I don't know if you saw this video by Chris Hadfield, but he has a guitar. He's a Canadian astronaut. He has a guitar, and he's playing David Bowie's Space Odyssey. The ground control to Major Tom. And he's in the cupola of the International Space Station. It's a great video. Fantastic. You should definitely look it up. And it's on a channel called Rare Earth. And his son, Evan, has been doing this series for several years now. And they basically do I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 20 or 30 episodes per year. And I only found them like a couple months ago, so I've been watching them slowly. And they shoot them all over the world in many different things and about many different topics. It's really quite interesting. So for the Americano video, I styled it. I took some styling elements from Rare Earth, and I called the series Rare Coffee. Just kind of a fun project, you know. So smoking well. I've got rid of the bands. We're definitely into the second third of the cigar. I definitely will agree with what Blind Man's Puff wrote in 2005 that it's got a nice medium full body. The pepper is definitely still there. It's been peppery the whole way through. So I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but finally the Ravens did play the Steelers, and we lost. And then I think we played another game, and then we lost. And then I heard that we just played the Cowboys on Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that. Monday, I don't know. And we won. Excellent. I think we need to win more because I think we've been losing quite a bit. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following The Mandalorian, right? That Star Wars TV show. And so I was reading I was watching this video on YouTube that was talking about how The Mandalorian, how they're theorizing that The Mandalorian is phasing out the sequel trilogy. So the one with Rey and Finn and all that, and Snoke and the stuff that's been happening in the last 3 movies, right? The terrible 3 movies. At least I think they're terrible. Terrible. But evidently, this group of people that are Star Wars fans are theorizing that The Mandalorian is making steps, or Favreau is making steps to essentially negate the sequel. Because evidently, the first movie in the sequel, the one where they introduce Rey, where Han dies, evidently that did like 3 billion or something like that in revenue, or 6 billion, some crazy amount of money in revenue. By the time that they had gotten to the last one, The Rise of Skywalker, the most recent one, that only did like maybe it was 3 billion, and the last one did 1 billion. So basically, they lost like 2/3 of their revenue. So Disney's like, I guess Disney's upset with that. And so they're supposedly structuring things in so that was what. So they were talking about how they went to the director of one of the shows, and I think it was in Mandalorian. They're talking about I think they did a flashback where the Death Star blew up, right? Now the Death Star blows up and it's just obliterated, right? So in Return of the Jedi, it's obliterated. But in The Rise of Skywalker, the second Death Star, we're talking about the second Death Star, right? The second Death Star, Rey and I guess Finn go to this planet where pieces and chunks of the second Death Star have fallen onto this planet, and they go into this Death Star to retrieve something. I forgot what it was, but because it's unmemorable, right? So if the Death Star was obliterated, then there should be no pieces on this planet. So the theory is that because in The Mandalorian, they showed the obliteration of the second Death Star, and they even asked the director, some fans like tweeted the director, so what was the purpose of this? And the guy was like, we were recreating the explosion from Jedi. And then they went further to ask him, the director on Twitter about, does that mean that it's different than the Death Star from Skywalker? And he never replied to that. So the theorizing is that they're kind of doing the Star Trek thing. You remember how like J.J. Abrams took the Star Trek 2009 and made it the Kelvin timeline away from the original. So I think that what people are saying is that they're structuring Mandalorian and subsequent things like the upcoming, what is it? There's one for Obi-Wan Kenobi that's coming up, and there's one for Boba Fett, and they say there's going to be one for Ahsoka TV series, and they're structuring them so that the sequel can be like a Kelvin timeline, this other timeline, and then they'll eventually break off into a separate timeline that makes more sense than this. So Di says maybe watch Lone Wolf and Cub to see what is Lone. I'm not familiar with Lone Wolf and Cub, but that's what they're saying, and I thought that was kind of interesting and kind of plausible, and which is, good because I think the sequels overall sucked. I mean, I liked Rian Johnson's version, the second movie. I like that, but man, some of my cousin, even hardcore Star Wars guys, they just hated that stuff. They hated it, hated it with like a vengeance, like they're like they couldn't see straight anymore. That's how much they hated it. But when I asked them, like, what do you hate about it? Because I thought it was quite good. They just couldn't verbalize what it is they hated. So, who knows? But if you saw last week's Mandalorian, you saw the Return of Boba Fett, which is cool. I think that's cool. And for me personally, I thought the cool part was that one of my buddies from the business, David Klein, we worked on a movie many, many years ago for Kevin Smith back in New Jersey. He was the DP of this last episode, and so that for me personally, that was kind of exciting to see that he's doing that. I mean, he's done a lot of really great television, like he did most of the Homeland series. He did those. So, it's nice to see him on the. I was telling my friend Aaron. So, we're good friends with a guy named Aaron out in California, and I'm still very good friends with him as well. And it's like, hey man, you need to go talk to David for season 3 when they're shooting. If he'll let us come and do a set visit, because I would love to go and like visit the set of Mandalorian. But who knows? Disney's pretty tight about things like that. But if you're the DP, should have some pull. And then what's also funny was that the director of last week's episode was Robert Rodriguez, who's the director of movies like El Mariachi and Desperado, things like that. And yeah, I don't know Robert. I just know of him, right? But he actually is a good friends with one of my other friends in the business, and he did the wedding video for my friend's wedding, which I thought was kind of funny. Here's this celebrated Hollywood director just doing a wedding video for our friends. Rodriguez is crazy, Brian. Absolutely. I mean, he made El Mariachi with like $16,000. I thought that was really, really well done. I mean, really ballsy. Actually, all those guys, even Rodriguez did El Mariachi for like $16,000. And where David started out was that he went to the Vancouver Film School, and he ended up going to school with a guy named Kevin Smith. And Kevin, of course, dropped out of Vancouver Film School and then started and did his movie called Clerks. And David was the DP of Clerks and he did all of Kevin's movies up until Dogma. And for Dogma, the studio wanted someone else to be the DP. Which is good because he got the last laugh. David's still shooting like big projects, so doing well. So smoking well, it's still that pepper. Actually, the pepper's kind of changed. It's actually, no, the pepper has faded, has faded a little bit, and now is more. maybe more leathery. Blind Man's Puff said in the last third, it became more like dark roasted coffee. Maybe I can see a coffeeness to it, but I don't know if it's that apparent. The nice coffee is still good. That actually is a really nice pairing with this one. It's really pleasant. They're really pleasant together. Which reminds me, we should probably look at the Glengoyne. I don't know why I got the box with it. Like, I could have just got the bottle, but I decided to take the box. Orange. It's kind of nice. So here it is, Glengoyne, Scotch. I don't really know much about Scotches, right? It's really an unfamiliar world for me. My father is really a big Scotch guy. But I have no real, as you know, I'm more of a rum guy. So let's open this up. I'm gonna cut this open. Of course, if Zycar sees me doing this, they'll probably won't replace my scissors. Would I buy a box? Like I said earlier, it's a lot of black pepper, very much like my father, in some ways reminiscent of the Opus X. And as you know, I'm not really a black pepper cigar fan, so no, I would probably not buy a box. But it is an enjoyable cigar. But if you are someone that likes black pepper, it would be something you would enjoy. There's a nice aroma coming from the bottle. Oh yeah, George, now it's time to open. Now let's get the glass here. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a peaty smell, but it's got nice clarity. Yeah. There's a sweetness, almost like apple cider. The nose is kind of like apple cider. Huh. There's a slight burn on the swallow, but it's got a really nice sweetness. A little bit of astringent on the tongue now. Yeah, nice sweetness. That's nice. That's quite nice, actually. All right, let's try the cigar some more. That's got nice. That's got a nice pairing, actually. That's a nice combination. All right. That's good. That's good. That works. Yeah, Brian, you should tell Maria to try that. That's good. The Glengoyne. So the reason I got the Glengoyne, I know I said this a little bit earlier, but for those of you joining us after, so like last week, we're talking about the Cabaiguan, and that reminded me very much of that old Cuban style. And when I was in Bangkok 4 years ago, my buddy Tid there, he was like, "Hey, you need to try it." Buddy Pip, he was like, "You need to try this pairing with the Monte Cristo No. 2 Habano and this Speyburn Speyside." So I went to the wine source today and I was like, "Hey, do you have this Speyburn?" And the girl was like, "We don't have the Speyburn." And I was like, "Well, how about something stylistically similar?" Like, they did have other Speysides, but she was like, "Try this one. Similar price point and similar character to the Speyburn." So I got this one, even though I was thinking I should get a Speyside. I decided, you know what, I'm going to go with her recommendation, and I think it's a good one. If I keep doing this, I'm going to have a lot of bottles around here. The price point of this cigar is a little, again, like last week's Kabaiguan, this is also the same price, $11.95. So it's kind of on that edge of where I tend to like, for my personal smoking, I tend to be a little bit more like, oh, it's right at that cutoff. For me, that's like $12 is kind of like where I start to. $10 and above, I start to get a little more cautious. $12 and above, I get a little more hesitant. George says multiple bottles is a good thing. Yes, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you. But my concern is like with cigars, if I get too many bottles, how will I drink them all before I'm dead? So Brian's asking how the Scotch is with the cigar. I think there's a symbiotic pairing. The Scotch is smooth. It's sweet. Like the first sip I had, there was a little more of a burn. Now I guess my palate is now used to that, so now it's not that burn. It's got nice sweetness, smooth, maybe a slight hint of saltiness. Now I'm starting to get that, maybe a little slight hint. So Tony and Brian, where are you guys tonight? Or is Tony even here? I don't think he's here. Brian, are you at home or are you down at Bud's? Bud called me yesterday. He was asking, hey, are you going to come out tonight? I was like, oh, maybe. I don't know if I'm just kind of tired. Yesterday I was really tired. I ended up, for some reason, this whole pandemic, I haven't slept very well at all. It's a very fitful kind of sleepiness. But yesterday, I was up like at 5 o'clock and just couldn't go back to bed. So by yesterday evening, I was just like tired. Yeah, this is a nice pairing. Actually, the coffee and the cigar, as well as the Scotch and the cigar tonight, are going really well together. Then, as you can see, the burn in this one is still very solid, very even, very consistent. The ash is very white, so I think what they say there's a lot of magnesium. I don't know. Just trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys are interested, but I just read. So if you guys are working from home, and I'm not one that works from home, and I have to go into the shop pretty much daily. So my work is always very much in the public eye. But I found this program today. It was it on BBC or something? One of the news sites had it, where the state of Hawaii is now taking applications from people who work remotely that would like to work remotely from Hawaii. And the idea behind this program is that the state of Hawaii will take you, if they accept you in this program, they will fly you to Hawaii, where you will live and work in, I guess, I'm thinking Honolulu, which is where I would go. You live in Hawaii and work there and be part of the community, not just a tourist, for at least a minimum of 30 days. You could stay longer, but a minimum of 30 days. So I dropped an application just a couple hours ago. They were like, they're like, what window do you want? Like January to April or April to like June. So I put in for January. At this point, if I was to be accepted, I have no idea how that would work. But, I figured, why not apply? Because if I don't apply, then I never have to worry about it. But at least if I win, or if I get accepted, then I have to worry about it. Work in Waikiki and pay reduced hotel. So do I have to stay in a hotel or can I stay at friends and relatives? Because I got places to stay. I just need to rent a car. George says several islands in the Caribbean are doing it for a year. You know, I don't know if my friend got this, but one of my friends, Christian DeLudis, he's a chef. He was from Baltimore, but then last year he moved up to Harrisburg. Maybe 2 years ago he moved to Harrisburg. And last year I went to his restaurant. He had a restaurant there called Coda in Harrisburg. Awesome restaurant, awesome chef, right? And I hadn't heard from then I heard that Coda kind of closed because I guess the pandemic put them under. And then recently he messaged me and he's like, hey man, you need to come check out my new place. And he's like down in St. Martin. So I don't know if he's there for that or he went for something else. Yeah, Brian, you should definitely apply. Di, you should apply. All of you guys should apply. Why not? But don't worry, if I do end up somehow in Hawaii, the show will continue. Still at 8 p.m. on Thursdays. And Di says, renting car is easy. They were using the stadium parking lot for rental car overflow. It was amazing how many cars. Yeah, you should. I saw that. That's craziness. But, you know, over the years, like I remember, you know, I lived in Honolulu from like 88 to end of 95. And so the H1 freeway, which is a major highway that runs through Honolulu, you knew that by 2:30, starting at 2:30, that's when traffic would be pretty heavy, pretty bad, getting bad on the H1. I remember going there in 2004. At the time, I was staying at my friend Frank's place, and he lived in an area called Alewa Heights, which was on the hillside, on the mountains, overlooking the city. I mean, it was a gorgeous location, gorgeous house. And man, I remember then, it was like noon. You're still looking down at the H1, you're like, oh my gosh, it was so busy. Like it was like in noon, it was already packed. So yeah, the amount of rental cars, the amount of cars in Honolulu just exploded. So I would enjoy, like I've got, you know, Rusty's family lives on the Big Island. They grow coffee there. So I can go do some coffee things in the Big Island for maybe a week or so. And I think it could be a fun time. I don't know how it would affect, you know, cafe operations here, but you know, I'll worry about that bridge if we ever get to it. Yes, I think you could just drop a Google search for that. Let's see if I can look in my history here. It's called Movers and Shakas. Movers and Shakas, SHAKAS is the name of the program, and it's moversandshakas.org. So if you want to apply, that's where you go to apply. Closing applications close on December 15th. And they're looking for people that are very much, you know, in tune with Hawaii and like respecting local culture. So when I saw that part of it, I was like, I went back into my application and I dropped in, you know, some of my bona fides for Hawaii to try to get a better position. And Rusty's, you could really relive your youth and drive for Robert's Hawaii again. Oh, that would be kind of fun. Although now, you know, the problem now with doing that is, I guess it's not really a problem, but now you have to, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the commercial driver's license was a state level thing. Now it's a federal level licensing. I don't know if that's necessarily a problem or not. I guess it isn't, but you have to, but I think it's a little bit more, like if you make a mistake, like speeding, like it's much more penalizing now with a federal CDL. But I could do that again. Drive buses. That'd be kind of fun. But I think it's also a program where you're supposed to already have employment working from home. So They don't want you to take jobs from other local people. They want you to, just add to the economy without taking from jobs. George says, that's one thing about work from home I don't miss is the traffic. No, amen to that. Like, nowadays we open the shop at 9 o'clock. So I usually make the commute into Hamden from here in Cockeysville. I usually leave here around 8 o'clock. Prior to the pandemic, I would never leave at 8 o'clock. Like after 7:15, I would usually wait till 10 because the traffic would be heavy enough. And like sometimes you don't know, like the problem with Baltimore, like those of you who aren't from Baltimore, we have this from the north, we have this highway called Interstate 83 that runs into the city. And from the beltway that circles the city to the first exit going into the city, which is Northern Parkway, it's a long way. It's like, maybe 5 miles. There are no exits for that 5 miles. So there's times when I've gone when there's an accident or something somewhere along that way, and man, the traffic is just brutal, and there's no way to get out. So if you get past this one fail-safe point, you're just kind of done. So I would never go that way at that time. Now, God, you can go anytime. There's no... And even like in the afternoons, like across 695 on the north side of the town, like from like exit 24 to like exit 28, 29, usually like after 2:30, 3 o'clock, it gets really heavy. Like now, if there's a little bit of backup, man, I get a little bit like irritated. So Di says, might be easier to get a helicopter license. So that would be kind of fun too. I always wanted to fly those. But I never did. Actually, a few weeks ago, I was shooting one of my videos about, for the Spro channel. I did this series on green coffee. And the final episode, I ended up shooting at Martin State Airport. Just because I was looking for a different location. The weather was kind of nice that day. And so I'm there, and I was like, man, I got to see the aircraft. And I met this one pilot who was a pilot for a medical evacuation company, and they were flying Learjet 35s. So he was like, hey, man, you want to check out the plane? I was like, oh, yeah, I'd love to check out the plane. And I don't know if you've ever been in the Lear, but the Lears are the really small jets. So they're really narrow. So it's really just like two seats across, like one seat, and then the aisle, and then the second seat. Of course, this one had one seat, and then the aisle, and then like a bench for the stretcher. And he was like, hey, there's the cockpit. And I was like, if you want to come in the cockpit, you're well. But me, man, like, man, that cockpit is tight. It's super tight. Like I would love to have sat in it, but you know what? My fat butt might tell me I was like, I'll just watch from the passenger section. He was really, really cool. It was really cool that he let me do that. And he was like, I would take you up, but the company kind of watches that. Plus, it costs like $2,000 an hour to operate. And I was like, oh, dude, don't worry, I don't need to go up. Cool to sit in the plane. Then I got a message from my mentor in the coffee business. He sends me a picture. He's like, I don't know if you know, but some of these airlines, they have tail cams. So they mount the camera in the horizontal stabilizer, the tail of the plane that looks down on the fuselage, right? So you can see like the whole fuselage. And he's like, I'm on my way to Bangkok. And I was like, oh God, what's he doing there? So evidently he's going there to get married. He messaged me, I'm going to get married. I was like, you're going to get married? Now he's older than me. Like he's probably like 56, 57. And a few months ago, he sent me his picture. He's like, this is my girlfriend. He's got this like 24-year-old Thai girlfriend. I was like, oh man, that's what I need to be doing. So Hawaii says, Hawaii and Alaska have some unique licensing privilege for helicopter licensing. A lot of pilots are from foreign countries. Oh, interesting. But I think that I imagine, is that something that's specific to Hawaii, or is that because typically aircraft licensing is from the FAA, which is federal? Wouldn't be a bad place to fly, though. Speaking of Hawaii, I don't know if you saw, but Magnum PI has returned to television finally. So I finally watched that over the weekend. And that was kind of an interesting episode. You know, there some guy like hijacks TC, and then Rick decides that they gotta go get him, so they basically shoot TC out of the sky. That was kind of an interesting thing. I was expecting TC to be bitching at them for shooting his aircraft, but that didn't happen. Like the old TC would have been bitching at them. Like the old TC bitches at Rick and Magnum because they're always like, he's always taking on flights and they don't pay him back for fuel. How much more would the old TC be upset that they shot his aircraft down? Now, I don't know if you guys watched that Magnum show, but like, I was a big fan of the original with Tom Selleck, and like that's really part of why I wanted to go to Hawaii. I was like, oh, I'm gonna live that lifestyle or whatever. But so you know, when the new one came out and they were like, oh, Jay Hernandez is gonna be Magnum, I was like, what? Jay Hernandez? He's not quite Tom Selleck. But you know what? After watching the show, I really have come to enjoy it because I think that it's not the original show. It's nowhere near the original show. It's its own thing. It's very different. But I think they've done a really good job at it. I really have come to enjoy the show a lot. So speaking of aircraft, I don't know if you guys saw this, but they had the launch of the SpaceX, I forgot what they call it, not the Dragon, but the other craft. And this is a craft where I actually haven't read about it, but like I believe it's supposed to be this craft that's supposed to be able to go to Mars and then fly from point to point in Mars. So they had a test yesterday, I think it was yesterday, where they launched, where this ship launches, right? Like it takes off from the pad, and then it flies 12.5 kilometers and then lands again. And I thought it was really interesting. They had, like, if you watch the video, there's the videos on YouTube, and they had this one screen, SpaceX put this screen where they got a main screen and then two smaller screens, and from different angles. So one of the angles that they show in the lower corner is the actual engines. There are three like rocket engines, and at one point one of them flames out, and I was kind of wondering, like, oh, is this a defect? Because you know the three engines are the one flames out and then oscillates. Then later the second one flames out and oscillates again. I was like, oh man, they're having problems. But really, it turns out, I think that the oscillation is part of how they're steering the spacecraft. And then finally, all three cut out, and then it glides. So it goes vertical, right? And then it cuts out, and then it glides on its side. And there's some wings and fins on it that I think are helping it to move. And then one of the engines ignites, and the second one ignites, and then it turns, right? And now it's descending. And man, if you see it, it's going pretty fast. You're like, oh man, what's going to happen, right? And the third engine comes on, and it's like, and it's coming down. They're powering it down, right? They're powering it down, and then it lands, and then it explodes. So they said later that it was a successful test, even though the rocket or the spacecraft exploded on the pad because it landed really, really hard, but it was a success overall. So I guess they're either got another one that's ready, or they have to build another one before they can do the test. But I thought it was pretty wild. You know, you see this thing is flying itself. You're like, what the heck is going on with these people? Pretty amazing stuff. And then speaking of aircraft, I posted this to my Facebook, I think earlier today or yesterday. But I read this report, this article that said there's some Israeli scientist, astronomer, some kind of scientist, right? And he came out in the media and he's like, there are aliens, there is an intergalactic alliance of aliens that have reached out to humanity here on Earth. President Trump knows about it, and they have not decided. They've asked the governments not to reveal their presence because they don't want to start mass hysteria. I mean, God, there would be mass hysteria because evidently humans aren't ready for that revelation yet. But evidently according to this article, there is an agreement between this intergalactic federation and humanity about it. And there's even like a contract supposedly that they're supposed to have humans and members of this galactic federation to build an underground base on Mars. Now, the way the article was written, it made it kind of seem like it's already in existence. So if it's already in existence, then why are we? Maybe that's why we're spending all this money to go to Mars, because we need to go and, I don't know, join the rest of the intergalactic group. Oh, George, you like that visual aid? Yeah. So this smoke is the. Oh God. Don't inhale your cigars. That smoke is the crack blowing up. So the cigar is still smoking well. That pepperiness that I talked about earlier is gone. And it's just tobacco. It's just nice strength. So Dice says, did you hear in Hawaii that landlords are refusing rents for the bailout payments because they're renting without paying taxes? What? I haven't heard that. What does that mean? Refusing rents from bailout payments because they're renting without paying taxes. Well, who's not paying taxes? The people that are the renters or the landlords? And then Brian's ready, but is his 4K ready for the Galactic Federation? I don't know. That's a good question. Where are we going to go? You know, I wonder about that Galactic Federation. Like, we've been talking for the last several years about sending astronauts to Mars with the knowledge that it's a one-way trip. So when these astronauts go to Mars, that's where they're going to die. Whether sooner or later, they're just never going to come. They'll never come back. And then, like, I remember that they were showing I remember this article I read probably 2 years ago where they were talking about, they were showing the women that were selected for the astronaut training program for Mars. And, you know, they're all qualified, very qualified individuals, but they were like, you know, some of them were like in their 40s. And we're talking about not sending them for like maybe 10 years. Which seems to me that they'd be rather old to go to another planet. I don't know if that really means that. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it just seemed kind of like I would think you'd want to send someone, younger people, so that they could have a longer time to live on Mars. But maybe if you're younger, you don't have much experience, so they don't want to send people without experience. Yeah, so still smoking well. We're getting really down to the final part of the last third. Still smoking well. Construction is still solid. It's still burning very evenly. No complaints. So, Brian, what are you smoking tonight? I imagine that you're in your smoking room rather than out at the fire. Right about now, I'm starting to feel the heat on the tongue. Brian says, free funeral for a pensioner. Sounds good. Well, that's the thing. So if you go to Mars and that time comes, the time of your demise, however that may be, you're pretty much going to be there for the foreseeable future, right? There's no environment like here that would cause degradation of your body, right? It's pretty cold. It's pretty much, there's not too much of an atmosphere. So you would just be there, your body, in perpetuity. Which may not be a bad thing. Like if we consider Walt Disney, right? Walt Disney, they say, of course, is in cryogenic storage. And he wants, because they're preserving him in frozen storage because he wants to be reanimated at some point. But if you're one of these astronauts and you're there and you met your demise, you could be reanimated at some point in the future. Actually, they had an episode about that on Star Trek Voyager many, many years ago, where one of their red shirt types on an away mission dies. They leave her in space, and some alien civilization finds her floating in space. They harvest her body and then reanimate her. Their whole way in this story, their whole way of survival and continuance of their civilization is by finding corpses and reanimating them. That could be. Brian says, buried in Ridgel Graveyard. Animated, yes. And George was traumatized with space travel after the Challenger disaster. I was in first grade and we were all put in a classroom to watch it. Right then I knew I didn't want to. Yeah, that is the problem, you know. You're riding this big tank of explosives trying to escape the planet's gravity. And it could just explode. I don't know if you guys read the reports on that, but the reports say that the 7 astronauts in Challenger survived the explosion and the fall to Earth, only to be killed once they hit the surface of the ocean. That's got to be terrible. Like, especially for the pilots, you know, they said that the pilots were trying to do everything they could do to recover the aircraft. I mean, of course, as we know, there's no aircraft to recover. It was just the cockpit section. And the interesting thing is I was at Johnson Space Center a few years back. It's down in Houston, went to Johnson, took the tour that as full of tours I could get. And they have a mock-up, or not a mock-up, but they actually have a trainer. Oh no, I got to do the trainer at the Museum of Flight in Seattle. So the Museum of Flight in Seattle, they have a space shuttle trainer that you can actually go into and see, and it's a full-scale trainer for the space shuttle. And the thing that I thought was so remarkable about the space shuttle is that it's so small. Like, you put 7 people in this cockpit. Like, you've got 3 people on the cockpit, the flight deck where the controls are that you see. And then there's a lower level, a downstairs level where they have like 4 more seats. And everybody's crammed. I mean, it's really like this room that you can see behind me, right? That wall. Like, this is maybe 10 feet or so. This is much bigger than the shuttle cockpit. It's really tiny. Like you see where they sit, and then you see where they have the windows that have where they control the arm in the cargo bay. Man, that's like right up against each other. It's really tiny. And Brian says, we're still talking about it. Will we talk about me in decades after my death? No. Unfortunately not. Well, they might be. You know, maybe you could go to Mars, get killed, and then they'll talk about you. You just have to become an astronaut that's killed in the line of duty. I mean, we're still talking about Chaffee and White and those guys who were killed in Apollo 1 in that fire in the cockpit. the control, whatever, the command module. Which I just saw the documentary in that where they were talking about how they were just doing a test, an unfueled test. So the entire rocket had no fuel in it. But when they pressurized the capsule, and when they close the door and pressurize the capsule, it changes to a pure oxygen environment. And they did that for this test on the launch pad. Well, evidently there was some kind of wire that had frayed and was sparking. And the moment that spark happened in the pure oxygen environment, the entire command module was engulfed in flames. And they were talking in this documentary about how like they couldn't, like, I guess the crew got out of their harnesses and were trying to open the door because they said like the nylon from their spacesuits at the time were like fused together on the walls and to each other. It sounded pretty horrific. It was after that they changed this other material for the spacesuits that was not flammable, but the nylon that they wore in Apollo 1 was flammable. So we're getting down to the last bits of the cigar here. And the nice coffee is still a good companion. And this Glengoyne is also still quite good. So I don't know if you saw this, Rusty, but I saw another report today that talked about the Metropolitan Opera. I don't know if maybe Amy might have mentioned this to you or if she knew about this, but evidently the Metropolitan Opera has reached an impasse with the Stagehands Union, which is my union, the IATSE. And now I think they've walked away from the table. So the whole, even though the Met has been shuttered because of the COVID, the whole future is now in jeopardy because they can't come to an agreement on a new contract. Yeah, definitely we're getting to the end. It's starting to get hot on my fingers. So George's asking, any change in the Scotch? I mean, a little bit, I think. It's the sweetness that I talked about the Scotch early on has kind of diminished. I don't know if that's because my palate is more used to it, or maybe it's just been used to the air. But it is a little bit more astringent now. Let's add on a little bit more. And before I do that, my fingers are really burning. You know, when you get closer to the end of the cigar, it always, for me at least, it becomes a little bit more difficult to enjoy because like there's more. I think like I might have mentioned this in another broadcast, but like I think because the proximity of the smoke to the nose just makes it a little more difficult to smoke, and I tend to inhale more. So I'm going to put this down now because that's pretty much done. But let's see what this Scotch does. If it is just a matter of the oxidation of the Scotch making it more stringent. There's a little bit more sweetness in that little sip there. It's still a little bit astringent, I think maybe that's more because my palate might be has maybe become more tuned to it. I'm not sure what that would be. But it was still good. It was still good. That was good. The Glengoyne, good choice. I am feeling a little bit, you know. All right, that's good. That was good. That was good. That was good. So that was the Southern Draw Kudzu Toro. It's a box press Toro, 6x52 Habano Oscuro wrapper from Ecuador with wrapper, the Ometepe wrapper. Well, the wrapper leaf comes from Ometepe, which is a part of Nicaragua, a place in Nicaragua. And then it has Nicaraguan and U.S. fillers. Again, I'm not sure where in the U.S. it's from. I thought early on there was a little bit of a tinge, which made me think maybe it could be like a Pennsylvania type of tobacco, but I don't know. I don't know. And it's made by AJ Fernandez, Tabacalera Fernandez in Esteli. All right, so I guess that's good for now. Next week on the 17th, we're going to be trying the M. Bombay MQBA Toro. And then the 2 weeks after that, of course, are Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing anything then. You know, Christmas Eve is a little time for family and stuff like that. And New Year's Eve, God knows what we're going to do New Year's Eve. Maybe, who knows? I'll let you know next week when we get to it. And then after that, moving into January, I've got the lined up for is the Drew Estate Cigar Dojo Dogma, which is the Cigar Dojo special cigar by Drew Estate. And then the week after that, on the 14th, we're going to be doing the Illusione HL Candela, which is that Lancero with the Candela wrapper. And then on the 21st of January, we're going to move into the Four Kicks Cup Especial Sublime. So that's coming up. If you want to get the cigars, the list of the cigars coming up are in the show notes below. And, of course, you can get them all from Raul at Tobacco Leaf. So give him a call. If you guys are not in the area, he can always send it out to you. And then we can smoke them all together. Yeah, that's a great cigar. Well, the HL, I presume you're talking about, Brian. So that's about it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you taking the time with me again, as always, here on Thursday night. I know there's a lot of other stuff you could be doing. There's lots of stuff I could be doing, but I really don't have anything to do. So that's why we do this here. All right, so I guess that's good for this week. Thank you for tuning in again. See you next week. And, yeah, catch you then.